connected to iPhone.
Multiple people have been shot at a church in Sutherland Springs, Texas.
Shooting at a church in Sutherland Springs, Texas.
A Fox News alert, the constable in Wilson County telling Fox News that they are now pulling bodies out of a church after responding to an active shooter situation in Sutherland Springs, Texas. That's about 45 minutes outside of San Antonio.
The Wilson County Sheriff's Office told the Wilson County News that there are multiple people wounded and multiple deaths. The shooter has reportedly been taken down. One witness on the ground told CBS News she saw people being airlifted near the site of the First Baptist Church. The Connolly Memorial Medical Center confirmed they have received multiple victims related to the shooting.
We have spoken with officials who say FBI and first responders are on the scene of what I'm told is an active site here in Sutherland Springs, Texas. This is about 30 miles east of San Antonio. And I just spoke with a witness, a woman, a cashier at a gas station just across the street. She told me right around 11:30 Central Time in Sutherland Springs, she heard what she estimated to be 20 shots fired. She says that's when church would be underway for their Sunday service at First Baptist Church there. And customers in her store were calling 911, among those getting the police's attention. She told me that police responded to the scene very quickly. She said she's seen 4 helicopters take off with victims inside, multiple ambulances responding. But again, the FBI and first responders are on the scene. You see a feed here from our affiliate KSAT out of San Antonio in Sutherland Springs, Texas, on the scene here as we hope to learn more about what transpired there this morning.
Authorities responded to the First Baptist Church. Initial reports indicate a suspect entered the church and opened fire 11:30 a.m. Central Time, which would be about an hour and a half ago. A scene on the reporter says there were a number of Air Life medical helicopters dispatched. Another reporter on the scene also tweeting out in the past couple of minutes, Liz, that the shooter is dead. There is no more active threat, but that is not something that we have yet been able to confirm. The constable, though, confirming to Fox News there was a mass shooting and, quote, we are working on removing bodies. Clearly a awful situation on Sunday there in Texas.
Enforcement source is telling CNN that any more.
Prosecutors stated that Richard Rojas wanted to kill all of the people he ran over in New York City and expected police officers to shoot and kill him.
No, I can't see any of that.
Okay. Tell us about your town. I keep hearing it's a place where everybody knows everybody. People don't worry about locking their doors.
Pretty much, you know, but you just never know this day and time, you know, what happens out there, you know. It's just very unfortunate, you know, for the man to walk into a church and start fire. So,
Sheriff Jim Tackett. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Please continue.
Okay, so we just, at this time, we don't know any reason why the guy came to Sutherland Springs Church and, you know, opened fire. We just don't have any. We'll probably never know his name. So, I mean, the suspect did this. So.
Okay, Sheriff Joe Tackett, thank you again for your
A man accused of running down a crowd of pedestrians in Times Square has briefly appeared in court. Prosecutors stated that Richard Rojas wanted to kill all of the people he ran over in New York City and expected police officers to shoot and kill him. However, the 26-year-old only managed to kill one person during the crash, though he injured 22 others. Authorities stated Rojas drove his car from the Bronx to Times Square. Once he reached the crossroads of the world, he sped into nearly 24 people on the sidewalk before steel security barriers stopped the car.
And good afternoon. Once again, we're interrupting programming for breaking news happening in Tribeca. We do have some new information now. I'm Christine Johnson.
And I'm Maurice Dubois. The good news here is that there is no active threat at the moment. But here's what happened within the past 25, 30 minutes or so.
Now you're talking about sneaky, dirty, underhanded people that want to kill our civilians. They want to go after our civilians. They want to kill not only our civilians, all over the world. And it's going to be stopped. It's going to be stopped. Somebody criticized me the other day because they asked me what I do, and I said, I'm going to bomb the shit out of them. It's true. I don't care. I don't care. They've got to be stopped. They've got to be stopped. And they should have been stopped a long time ago. Look, so in Paris the other night, a horrible thing. And then all of a sudden we attack, and France attacks. All these different sites that they have, right? Why didn't they do this a year ago, 2 years ago? Why did they wait? They always wait for a tragedy to happen. They're never forward. They're always waiting for. So you say, oh wow, these are training centers, camps. By the way, what did they attack? They attacked the oil. Remember, I've been saying for 2 years, attack the oil. Everybody said, oh, Trump with the oil, Trump. But I said more than attack it. I said attack it, take it, and keep it. That's what I said.
Multiple people have been shot at a church in Sutherland Springs, located east of San Antonio. It is a horrible situation. It's an active crime scene right now. Law enforcement still on the scene. Helicopters have been in to retrieve the injured who are being treated at nearby hospitals, but law enforcement also telling us that there are a number of bodies that remain in the church. They will not be moving those bodies for some time, we understand, while they try to discern trajectories, collect evidence from this active crime scene. CNN's Kaylee Hartung is with me now. You've been talking to a number of people. We also understand the gunman is dead.
They want to kill not only our civilians, all over the world. And it's going to be stopped. It's going to be stopped. Somebody criticized me the other day because they asked me what I do, and I said, I'm going to bomb the shit out of them. It's true. I don't care. I don't care. They've got to be stopped.
Oh man, so you see the difference in the rhetoric, right? When it's a Muslim dude or a brown person, I'm gonna bomb the shit out of their whole country. He only killed one dude, but the motherfucker in Las Vegas, 50-something people, Trump ain't talked that shit about him. This motherfucker right here just killed 20-something people in the church. Trump ain't talked that shit about him.
Enforcement source is telling CNN that the shooter used a .223 rifle. Do you know, was it a semi-automatic weapon?
I do not know at this time if it was a semi or fully automatic.
This church recorded its services. Was this service being recorded at the time of the shooting?
Yes, I think it was being recorded. But
what?
The person that was recording it, he was taken to the hospital.
The person who was recording it was taken to the hospital?
Yes.
Oh my.
It was he was not shot, but he was taken to the hospital.
Okay. I
Okay.
understand a neighbor confronted the gunman.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about him?
Well, he was across the street, and he heard the shots, and he got his weapon, and he went outside, and the shooter dropped his rifle at the time, and got in his vehicle and took off. And we still don't know at this time, so the medical examiner examined his body, whether he was shot by the neighbor or not.
Do you believe it was that neighbor, though, who stopped the shooting?
Well, he was coming out of the church, as I understand. So he was probably quickly relieved. And at that point, the neighbor engaged with him. But I think he had more than one weapon on.
I know you are still working to identify the victims, but we do know that the youngest was just 5 years old. And can you tell us any more about this congregation, who these victims are, without even having to identify them specifically?
No, I can't give you any of that.
Okay. Tell us about your town. I keep hearing it's a place where everybody knows everybody. People don't worry about locking their doors.
Pretty much, but you just never know this day and time, what happens out there, It's just very unfortunate, for the man to walk into a church and start fire. So,
Sheriff Joe Tackett.
A Fox News alert, the constable in Wilson County telling Fox News that they are now pulling bodies out of a church after responding to an active shooter situation in Sutherland Springs, Texas. That's about 45 minutes outside of San Antonio. Authorities responded to the First Baptist Church. Initial reports indicate a suspect entered the church and opened fire 11:30 a.m. Central Time, which would be about an hour and a half ago. A scene on the reporter says there were a number of Air Life medical helicopters dispatched. Another reporter on the scene also tweeting out in the past couple of minutes, Liz, that the shooter is dead. There is no more active threat, but that is not something that we have yet been able to confirm. The constable, though, confirming to Fox News there was a mass shooting and, quote, we are working on removing bodies. Clearly a awful situation on Sunday there in Texas.
1980s by Steve Jackson Games, with later versions created into the 90s. This deck of cards has made very accurate predictions, such as the false flag attack on the World Trade Center on 9/11 and the attack on the Pentagon on the same day. Princess Diana died in mysterious circumstances, allegedly while fleeing the paparazzi, so one could argue that this card predicts her demise. And depending what year this card was released, it either predicts or refers to the Waco Massacre of 1991, where the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms, or the BATF, burned down the Branch Davidian Church, killing over 70 people, many of whom were children. The card game also refers to past and present events such as NASA faking the moon landings, the rewriting of history, gun control, an energy crisis, weather manipulation, subliminal messages, and the subversive power of the Vatican. The card game also features cards which have not yet come to pass. For example, Further Chaos, a fake alien invasion, and World War III. The whole point of this is to show you that the hidden elite powers of the world plan things many years ahead of time and leave clues in unlikely places. I will be showing you many examples of this as we go on. Also, we may be able to use these clues to make an educated guess at what is coming. It is demonstrable that various secret societies around the world play a significant part in major world events. The main secret societies for the sake of this video are the Knights Templar, Freemasonry, and the Skull and Bones Society. These secret societies are obsessed with ritual, symbolism, and numbers. On On Friday the 13th of October, 1307, the society known as the Knights Templar were arrested and tried for heresy against the Church. In order to avoid punishment, many of the remaining Templars went into hiding only to emerge years later as the Freemasons. The most significant number in Freemasonry is 33, because it is the highest attainable degree in the Scottish Rite. This number will crop up a lot more as we continue. The Knights Templar also controlled the original pirates, who operated under the black flag with a white skull and crossbones, a logo which is still used today by the Skull and Bones Society of Yale University. Their number is 322, which will also be significant as we proceed. Like a serial killer, these secret societies leave their numbers behind at terror events, rather like a signature. For example, JFK. A few miles from the 33rd parallel lies Elm Street in Dallas, Texas, the location of the assassination of JFK. Dallas, Texas, in numerology is 33. Kennedy in numerology is 33. JFK was killed on the 22nd of November, or the 22nd of the 11th, the sum of which is 33. Kennedy was shot at Dealey Plaza, which is, according to some researchers, an outdoor temple of the sun. And on Kennedy's gravesite you will find an eternal flame burning. This is one last insult to him, because the eternal flame has great esoteric significance to the Luciferian secret societies. These are just a few examples of the Luciferian signature left behind concerning John F. Kennedy. In the UK, in May 2004, there was an episode of Panorama called London Under Attack, which featured a terrorist attack in London very similar to those experienced in reality 14 months later, known as the 7/7 bombings. This is what is known as predictive programming, whereby the establishment informs the masses of what is going to happen before it actually does. This concept proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that these so-called terrorist attacks are premeditated by the country in which they occur. They are not unexpected attacks from an outside force of Islamic extremists. They are just the scapegoats. But in this predictive programming episode of Panorama, which prophesied the 7/7 bombings, there was a man by the name of Peter Power. He featured as a so-called expert on Panorama to tell everybody what would happen if something like this did occur. But in an unbelievable act of prophecy, Peter Power was conducting a terrorism training operation on the morning of 7/7 in the exact location that the real terrorist attacks occurred. See how they like to rub it in your face? It becomes much more clear as we go on. Another example of predictive programming would be the album cover of The Coops' Party Music. This quite clearly shows the destruction of the World Trade Centers, but it was created in June 2001, 3 months before the 9/11 attacks actually took place. Friday the 13th of November 2015, 3 months of The Coops' Party Music. This quite clearly shows the destruction of the World Trade Centers, but it was created in June 2001, 3 months before the 9/11 attacks actually took place. Friday the 13th of November 2015 was the date of the Bataclan attacks in Paris. This false flag attack happened at an Eagles of Death metal concert and interrupted their performance while they were playing a song called Kiss the Devil. After this false flag terrorist attack, in respect for the victims who died there, the Eagles of Death metal released a song called Save a Prayer, which is a cover version from a band called Duran Duran, who released it 33 years previously. Duran in numerology is 9, so Duran Duran is 99. Remember this. I'd also like to draw your attention to this curious, unidentified gold object on the floor at the Bataclan attack. It is unclear what this is, but it will become relevant later. In addition, the blood smears on the floor resemble the logo for the Brussels airport, which is the location of the next terrorist attack. The number 322 underneath the Skull and Bones Society logo can refer to a date, the 22nd day of the 3rd month, or March 22nd. On Tuesday, 22nd of March, or 322, 2016, there was a false flag terrorist attack in Belgium, in Brussels, where bombs were detonated at an airport and an underground train network. 33 years prior to this, AC/DC released an album called Flick of the Switch, which featured a song called Bedlam in Belgium. Bedlam meaning a scene of uproar and mayhem, as was experienced in Belgium on 3/22/2016, 33 years later. There is also a golden-coloured...
Okay, that's enough of that shit, man. God damn, this motherfucker went all the way down the rabbit hole. And AC/DC released the album 33 years later. It had a song on it that referenced Belgium. Fuck is you talking about?
I think that mental health is your problem here. This was a very, based on preliminary reports, very deranged individual, a lot of problems over a long period of time. We have a lot of mental health problems in our country, as do other countries. But this isn't a guns situation. I mean, we could go into it, but it's a little bit soon to go into it. But fortunately, somebody else had a gun that was shooting in the opposite direction. Otherwise, it would have been as bad as it was. It would have been much worse. But this is a mental health problem at the highest level. It's a very, very sad event. These are great people and a very, very sad event. But that's the way I view it. Thank you.
A mental health issue. So what's causing this type of mental unstableness in the white community? Because year after year after year, there's always these fucking mass shootings committed by white men, normally, ages 18 to 40. And they always do this shit. And it's not a gun problem. It's a mental health issue. So what the fuck makes these white dudes so fucking crazy where they feel like they gotta go kill 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 58 fucking people? White America need a fucking reality check, yo. Word up. Motherfuckers need a reality check.
Otherwise we'd be there. And there's another lady that was just up there. She left like 2 minutes before it happened to go clean the kitchen. So.
She cleaned the kitchen at her house?
No, at the church.
She was in the kitchen of the church when all this went down. So she missed it because she was volunteering, as many people do in this town, right? How many people do you think would be in church on an ordinary day like
40?
Today? About 40?
So about half our church members are gone.
You're hearing that there's that many fatalities. Yes. What are you hearing in terms of numbers?
Anywhere between 15 to 20.
Including children?
Oh, many children that were sitting with their family.
Anybody personally that you know that was affected?
Yes, everybody. Everybody next.
Why does there have to be more to it? Norville Rogers, why? I don't think it being white is the problem. There's more to it. There has to be. Why does it has to be more than that? Somebody said about the Las Vegas shooting. Oh, well, we don't know. This guy was wealthy. He was well off. You know, he had money set aside. He had a private plane, nice house. He was in his 60s. He was retired. We don't know why this happened. It was a tragic event, but we're not going to call him a terrorist because we don't know what his true motives were. We don't know any groups that he was affiliated with and all of this good shit. Yeah, it was bad, and they didn't really, sugarcoat him, but they didn't tear him down either. Now imagine if that Las Vegas shooting was a rap concert, just full of black people at a rap concert, and a black dude shot up a rap concert and killed 58 people. You know how different the news headlines would be? Black on black violence strikes again. This is why nobody believes the Black Lives Matter movement, because look what your community breeds in itself. And this is always what happens with these young gangsters and their guns and their violent music. And you get this type of scenarios when shit like this happens. And that would have been the scenario if it was reversed. So that's being black. So why is there not a deeper study on the psychology and the well-being and the mental health of the white community? Just like Trump said, oh, it's a mental problem. Well, obviously it is. So what the fuck makes y'all so fucking crazy? That's what I can't understand. You know what I'm saying? It's really fucking weird. Yes, being white does make you want to murder. Okay, so America is a white nation, right? America is a white country, basically. European-based, white economics, white political system, white judicial system, white education system, and most of all, white military. America has the largest military of all. And you know what? America, who's second after America? Russia, another white nation. And you know what America and Russia don't like? When other people enrich uranium and start nuclear projects. They don't like when other countries do that, because they want to be the only countries that have the right to these massive weapons of destruction. And you know what? A white nation has actually used that force twice and dropped 2 atom bombs. And war after war after war after century after century, and in order for the white race to maintain its dominance and to have gotten to this place, it has murdered over and over and over and over to colonize the fucking world. They have murdered, and it's something in the psyche that you yourselves can't really understand, is why are you so murderous the way you are? Why do you kill the way that you do? It's 2017. We could have been a spacefaring race by now. We could have been an interplanetary race by now. But all of our technology, from the smartest of the smartest people with the highest of the highest degrees, are used to make lasers and rockets and missiles and bombs and fucking smarter guns and easier guns, and this is the legacy that you guys leave behind. And now that it's so prevalent, that it's so easy to see with all these fucking, technology now and shit, is weird as shit that once again, year after year, mass shooting after mass shooting, but nobody ever calls out the white community for that shit. But let one Muslim dude drive a fucking car through New York, running people over, trying to kill everybody. He only kills one person, and Trump says, I'm gonna bomb them. See, that's why they need to be stopped. I'm gonna bomb their whole fucking nation. I don't give a fuck what nobody says. That's what I'm doing. I'm gonna bomb them. He only killed one dude. You know what I'm saying? But 58 people die, 27 people die. He don't say, we need to take a stringent look at what the fuck is wrong with American culture and why do our males strike out in these ways. It's hard to look inward, man. It is. That shit is tough. The black community needs to look inward, absolutely, and try to solve and fix some of our problems our goddamn self. The white community, y'all need to do the same shit, yo. Y'all need to look inwards and see, like, what the fuck is y'all doing, y'all? You know what I'm saying? That shit is crazy. Y'all really need to figure out what the fuck is wrong, yo. You say dominant, more race of people than white? What? Oh, definitely. So what do you think I'm doing now? Do you not understand that most of my viewers are people of my community? That we have debates and discussions like this and bring up fucking different topics, economics, politics, religion, and this is what we do, and we build information because the name of the show is Art and Education. So yeah, I do look inward towards my own community. Them. That's what it is. I got art and a message. I got art and a message. You know what I'm saying? But the message ain't even mine. That shit come from the world. I just present that shit to you without the filter on that shit. You know what I'm saying? That's all it is. Take the filter off of it, man. Shit fucked up everywhere. It's fucked up everywhere. And some people some groups and institutions are way more fucked up than others. No. Once again, I put blame on the institutions that descendants of Europeans have created in this country. Like racism. That's institutional. That's fucking still a fucking problem. Once again, like you say, communities. Exactly. Any conversation is positive to me, even if I don't agree with you. It's still a positive conversation. His last name, Lovett, but he says I hate you. But you know what's weird? You actually took the time to say you hate me. So how do you know you hate me? You have sat here for some period and figured out that you really, really disagree with what I'm saying. And so instead of saying to yourself, this dude is not my cup of tea, I think I'll change the channel. You said, no, I really don't like this guy to the point I'm going to tell him I don't like him. Let me find my controller. Let me send this dude a message. I hate you, Sin. Now I'm gonna sit here and see if he responds to my message. Because I hate this guy so much, I'm gonna continue to watch his broadcast. That's how much I hate him. Yeah, smoking solo gaming. That's true to a certain extent. Okay, that's like the dude says, man. That's like your opinion, bro. You're a wannabe. I'm a wannabe what? But it's weird because you're like still watching it. So obviously right now I'm the most entertaining thing you have going on in your fucking life. In your life. I'm making an impact on your life because you are literally using your energy to communicate with me. Nobody's making you do this. I'm not forcing you to do it at all. This is of your own free will. So you still don't understand the fucking stupidity in your actions by trying to troll me. Trolls are, by definition, a fucking redundant retard, you know? So it's really fucking weird. Because if it's so bad and so distasteful to you, then you should just change the channel. That's the simplest thing to do, but instead you're wasting energy. And my audience and viewers see that there are people like you out there. I want to slap you so bad. I love it. This dude is having real emotional responses. That's what's up. That's what's up, yo. Yeah. He'll be all right, man. Like I said, I got a new fanboy. It's cool. But yeah, back to the subject at hand, man. You know what I'm saying? They some real fucking some deep soul searching every community needs to do. And we ain't got a lot of time, man. Motherfucking technology and shit speeding up so fast, man. This globalization, they're gonna push this fucking World War III agenda. And my whole argument is, yo, white supremacy is bad for everybody, even white people, yo. You know what I'm saying? That shit bad for you too. If you not a bank owner, if you ain't got stock in a central bank, in like the Federal Reserve or some shit, if you ain't a fucking Rockefeller or Rothschild or Reinstein or Sachs or some of these motherfuckers, they don't give a fuck about you either. Cause when they pump beef up with fucking recombinant bovine growth hormones and feed that shit to your kids and goddamn Happy Meals and shit, it's the same effect for everybody. You know what I'm saying? When they fluoridate your water and you use that shit to cook your food, it affects you just like it affects me. When they chemtrail the fucking cities and put all these heavy metals, aluminum and aluminum oxide and beryllium and in the air and shit, and the shit rains down into our groundwater and shit, that shit affects you like it affects me. You know what I'm saying? When they educate the kids to be done with No Child Left Behind and all this other bullshit. So once you understand the system, and yeah, you know what I'm saying, if you are of the race that has built the system, you don't have to feel bad. Nobody shouldn't feel bad about who the fuck they are. You know what I'm saying? You ain't made yourself. That's just how it just happened to be. You know what I'm saying? But still understanding the system is the biggest part of it. And when you understand what power is, and power is the end all, be all, power, control, not money. Because motherfuckers want to trace it all the way up to money. But even when you trace it to the money, once again, when you think about major corporations, major institutions, and banking firms, who do you envision in your mind sitting on the board of directors of these different places? You see a bunch of Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, and Italians, and no, Europeans and Jews always is the image, right? Because that's how it is. And so that's where the power lies. And it's bad for everybody. Real bad for everybody. Beryllium, aluminum, and that's white supremacy. That's what I call white supremacy. When you have a population reduction agenda, that's white supremacy. When you can build and erect an edifice in the United States, call it the Georgia Guidestones, and the first code that it commands is to maintain the human population under 500 million, regulate reproduction, unify the world with one language and one religion. That's white supremacy. When you can tell a motherfucker, your child cannot come to my school unless they take this vaccination. That's supremacy. That's the shit that I want to break down. That's the shit I want to expose. And who write all these bills and laws into effect, yo? You gotta see this shit. Who pulled these fucking strings? How does all this shit happen? The chemtrail scenario is one of the easiest one. Who funds this shit? Who came up with this program? Who funded this shit? Who idea was this shit? Why are they doing this? What companies install these shits in the fucking airplanes, the dispensary systems and all that shit? What company actually comes up with the chemical compounds that are housed in these fucking tanks? You know what I'm saying? That's some supremacy shit, yo. Real talk. And if motherfuckers can't fight against that shit, everybody want to say, oh, Big Brother and Big Pharma, and they, well, you know, the man and the banking system, all that shit is white supremacy. You put all that shit in a bubble, roll it all in a ball, white supremacy. Nobody don't like it. Nobody don't like it. Some people just don't call it what the fuck it is. That's what it is. If blacks ruled it exactly, it'll be the same thing. Whoever's in charge, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So there should be some way to break down the power structure and keep it evenly dispersed, because we have communication globally. When when we came out of the fucking dark ages and realized different parts of the world, for a long time, yeah, the known world was very fucking small. And everybody wanted to conquer the known world. But now we know the circumference of the earth. We know how many people are on it. And there is absolutely no reason that power should be conglomerated in 1 fucking % of the world's population. That's fucking idiotic. That's fucking insane that 1% of the world controls 90% of the resources of the world and dictates how it's dispersed and distributed to everyone. That's fucking ridiculous. It's archaic, it's barbaric, and the fucking system needs to be broken. But of course, the people who benefit from the system are trained not to see it. And at the same time, if you're in power, who wants to fucking give it up? And I'm pretty sure if blacks ruled the world like we once did, we wouldn't want to give up power either. We would try to stay in power. That's the whole purpose of power. You know what I'm saying? flat earthers. I don't know. You know what? Elon Musk is talking about fucking terraforming Mars and, you know, having fucking spaceships that can fly around the Earth and get you anywhere in an hour and all of this shit, and, you know, putting gas stations in space and all of that shit, yo. If I ever get on a flight and go in outer space and I can see the planet for myself, but then I tell the motherfucker if it's round or if it's flat. Until then, I don't fucking know. You know what I'm saying? Honestly, how can you prove it? Just like anything else. Can you prove any fucking thing? Really? Can I prove anything that I fucking said? Can you disprove it? Can you absolutely disprove anything that I've said? Who cares about that flat earth shit, yo? You know what I'm saying? All I care about is my people surviving into the next fucking century. You know what I'm saying? Because that shit is a fucking question right now. Damn. Alright, bro. Damn, Love It still in here? It's all good, man. No, I didn't. I that's not a lie. I didn't graduate high school. I didn't graduate high school. It's funny, right? I'm a high school dropout. So if I dropped out of high school, who taught me how to do this? I must have taught myself. Oh. If I dropped out of high school, who taught me all this information I know? I must have taught myself. How do you teach yourself? How do you teach yourself? I wonder, how do you teach yourself? I wonder how does one educate himself? I wonder how do you just figure shit out? It's amazing. I got the blueprint. I got the blueprint. That's how. I'm not gonna share my secrets with you. Hey, don't worry, cause I read your shit too. Oh, I got the blueprints. I read your shit too, man. I know how y'all think. I got the blueprints. Ooh wee, I got that knowledge. Ooh wee. I bet you didn't graduate high school. Nope. Everything I need to know, I learned in kindergarten. I learned how to read and write and count. Figure out everything else my damn self. Ooh, I got that knowledge. Come on.
Let me begin today by addressing the horrific shooting in Sutherland Springs, Texas. Our thoughts and prayers are with the victims and families of today's horrible and murderous attack. This act of evil occurred as the victims and their families were in their place of sacred worship. We cannot put into words the pain and grief we all feel, and we cannot begin to imagine the suffering of those who lost the ones they so dearly loved. Our hearts are broken, but in dark times, and these are dark times, such as these, Americans do what they do best. We pull together. We join hands, we lock arms, and through the tears and through the sadness, we stand strong, oh so strong. My administration will provide its full support to the great state of Texas and all local authorities investigating this horrible crime. I've spoken just a few minutes ago with Governor Abbott, and we offer our thanks to the first responders, the FBI, all of the many people involved, both federal and otherwise. Ultimately, they stopped the suspect and rendered immediate life-saving aid to certain victims of the shooting. I will continue to follow the developments closely. All of America is praying to God to help the wounded and the families of the victims. We will never, ever leave their side.
Enforcement source is telling CNN that
The person that was recording it, he was taken to the hospital. He went outside.
everybody, people, don't worry about. Okay, Sheriff.
Crowd of pedestrians.
Sheriff Joe Tackett. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Please continue.
Okay, so at this time we don't know any reason why the guy came to Sutherland Springs Church and, opened fire. We just don't have any. We'll probably never know that. Because the suspect is dead. So.
Okay, Sheriff Joe Tackett, thank you again for your time.
A man accused of running down a crowd of pedestrians in Times Square has briefly appeared in court. Prosecutors stated that Richard Rojas wanted to kill all of the people he ran over in New York City and expected police officers to shoot and kill him. However, the 26-year-old only managed to kill one person during the crash, though he injured 22 others. Authorities stated Rojas drove his car from the Bronx to Times Square. Once he reached the crossroads of the world, he sped into nearly 24 people on the sidewalk before steel security barriers stopped the car.
And good afternoon. Once again, we're interrupting programming for breaking news happening in Tribeca. We do have some new information now. I'm Christine Johnson.
And I'm Maurice Dubois. The good news here is that there is no active threat at the moment. But here's what happened within the past 25, 30 minutes or so.
Now you're talking about sneaky, dirty, underhanded people that want to kill our civilians. They want to go after our civilians. They want to kill not only our civilians, all over the world. And it's going to be stopped. It's going to be stopped. Somebody criticized me the other day because they asked me what I do, and I said, I'm going to bomb the shit out of them. That's true. I don't care. I don't care. They've got to be stopped. They've got to be stopped. And they should have been stopped a long time ago. Look, so in Paris the other night, a horrible thing. And then all of a sudden we attack, and France attacks, all these different sites that they have, right? Why didn't they do this a year ago, 2 years ago? Why do they wait? They always wait for a tragedy to happen. They're never forward. They're always waiting for it. So you say, oh wow, these are training centers, camps. By the way, what did they attack? They attacked the oil. Remember, I've been saying for 2 years, attack the oil. Everybody said, oh, Trump with the oil, Trump. But I said more than attack it. I said attack it, take it, and keep it. That's what I said.
Multiple people have been shot at a church in Sutherland Springs, located east of San Antonio. It is a horror.
Yo, that motherfucker be saying some crazy ass shit to be the president. That shit, real or not, that shit is not presidential. Like, come on, bruh, you be talking like that. Yeah. I said attack it, take the oil, keep the oil. You know what I'm saying? Bomb. I said, you know what? I'm gonna bomb the shit out of them. What the fuck president talks like that? If I was the owner of the football team, I'd fire them son of a bitches. Oh, damn. I fire them son of bitches. I bomb the shit out of them. Yo, that ain't funny. Come on, man. Y'all know that shit funny, man. Damn. Imagine this now. Hey, I ain't fuck with Obama neither. Hey, a president to me. All them motherfuckers is a puppet. I ain't fuck with Obama. But can you imagine Obama saying that shit? I'm gonna bomb the shit out of him. Yo, they got Obama for wearing a tan suit. Look at him in that awful tan suit. I don't know what the hell he thinks he's doing. That's not president. But if this motherfucker said, oh, you only lost 16 people, it's not that bad. All right. I digress. Oh man, that shit is funny. That shit is, to me, in my opinion, that shit is funny. Wow. Look at these people. They're coming after our civilians. That's some sneaky, underhanded stuff right there, man. Coming after our civilians here in America, worldwide. You know, somebody asked me what I do. I bomb the shit out of them. That dude killed one man. He killed one person. His entire race is blamed, or his entire religion is blamed. See how sneaky and underhanded they are. They want to come after our citizens. What I would do, I would bomb the shit out of them. And one act of one black or brown person condemns an entire community. An entire community. But when one white person does the same thing, the entire white community is never blamed. The entire white community never gets blamed for the actions of one individual. Why? Why is that? Psychological programming. You know what I'm saying? Them, they, always doing it like that. Oh, they go to PlayStation. Smoking crack. Wow, smoking crack and meth. Wow, for sure.
Finally tonight, a NewsHour essay. As we reported earlier, President Obama today announced plans to expand drug treatment centers and increase the use of drugs that reverse the effect of opioids like heroin, OxyContin, and Percocet. Communities across the country are developing new approaches to this epidemic in an attempt to support addicts, helping them into treatment instead of arrests. New York's Cardozo Law School professor Ekal Yanka compares today's approach to heroin users to the tough-on-crime response a few decades ago to those using crack cocaine.
That Kroger, the Midwestern grocery chain, has decided to make the heroin overdose drug naloxone available without a prescription is a sign of how ominous the current epidemic has grown. Faced with a rising wave of addiction, misery, crime, and death, our nation has linked arms to save souls. Senators and CEOs, Midwestern pharmacies, and even tough-on-crime Republican presidential candidates now speak with moving compassion about the real people crippled by addiction. It wasn't always this way. 30 years ago, America was facing a similar wave of addiction, death, and crime, and the response could not have been more different. Television brought us endless images of thin, black, ravaged bodies, always with desperate dried lips. We learned the words, crack baby. Back then, when addiction was a black problem, there was no wave of national compassion. Instead, we were warned of super predators, young, faceless black men wearing bandanas and sagging jeans. No matter how far from our lives crack was, we're guilty by association. By the time I was in college in the early 1990s, my short dreadlocks meant older women would cross the street to avoid me. African Americans were cast as pathological. Their plight was evidence of collective moral failure, of welfare mothers and rock-slinging thugs, and a reason to cut off all help. Blacks would just have to pull themselves out of the crack epidemic. Until then, the only answer lay in cordoning off the wreckage with militarized policing. Today, police chiefs facing heroin addiction are responding not by invoking war, but by trying to save lives and get people into rehab. Suddenly, crime is understood as a sign of underlying addiction rather than a scourge to be eradicated. One former narcotics officer said, "These are people. They have a purpose in life, and we can't look at it any other way." But he couldn't quite put his finger on just what had changed. His words reflect our collective self-denial. It's hard to describe how bittersweet many African Americans feel witnessing this. Glad to be rid of a failed war on drugs? Yes. But also weary and embittered. When the faces of addiction had dark skin, the police didn't see sons and daughters, sisters and brothers. They saw brothers, young thugs to be locked up, not people with a purpose in life. No one laments the violence the crack bomb set off more than African Americans. But how we respond to the crimes accompanying addiction depends on how much we care about those affected. White heroin addicts get overdose treatment, rehabilitation, and reincorporation. Black drug users got jail cells and just say no. It would be perverse to want to go back, and this is not just about racial guilt. The hope is that we really can learn from our meanest moments. This stark moment gives us the opportunity to quit our dedication to ignoring racism. Next time we, or even you, are faced with an indictment of institutionalized racism, maybe we can swallow the knee-jerk dismissal or the condescending finger-wagging and imagine if you would accept such treatment of your own. We don't have to wait until a problem has a white face to answer with humanity.
You're doing all of this because I am so fucking entertaining. I'm fucking captivating to you, aren't I? Get used to it, buddy. It's like this dude here. Now watch. I'm not trying to motherfucking plant some fucking thought in your head or anything like that. But like, you find this shit so fucking intriguing that later on today, I will pop into your mind and you may even be compelled to start a conversation with someone in your life about me starting out. Man, I was watching this black dude paint earlier and then if it happens, don't get mad at me.
All right, so welcome everyone. I'm going to talk more about what it takes to become a multi-planet species. And just a brief refresher on why this is important. I think fundamentally the future is vastly more exciting and interesting if we're a spacefaring civilization and a multi-planet species than if we're not. You want to be inspired by things. You want to wake up in the morning and think the future is going to be great. And that's what being a spacefaring civilization is all about. It's about believing in the future and thinking that the future will be better than the past. And I can't think of anything more exciting than going out there and being among the stars. That's why. So let me go into more detail on becoming multi-planet species. This is the updated design for well, we're sort of searching for the right name, but the code name at least is BFR. Probably the most important thing that I want to convey in this presentation is that I think we have figured out how to pay for it. This is very important. In last year's presentation, we're really searching for what the right way, how do we pay for this thing? We went through various ideas, Kickstarter, collecting underpants. These didn't pan out. But now we think we've got a way to do it, which is to have a smaller vehicle, still pretty big, but one that can serve, one that can do everything that's needed in the greater Earth orbit activity. So essentially, we want to make our current vehicles redundant. We want to have one system, one booster and ship that replaces Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, and Dragon. So if we can do that, then all the resources that are used for Falcon 9, Heavy, and Dragon can be applied to this system. So that's really fundamental. So let's see, what progress have we made in this direction? So last time you saw the giant tank, that's actually a 12-meter tank. And you can see the relative scale of it. It's 1,000 cubic meters volume inside. That's actually more pressurized volume than an A380, just to put that into perspective. We developed a new carbon fiber matrix that's much stronger and more capable at cryo than anything before, and it holds 1,200 tons of liquid oxygen. So we tested it. So we successfully tested it up to its design pressure, and then went a little further. So we wanted to see where it would break, and we found out where it would break. It shot about 300 feet into the air and landed in the ocean. We fished it out, and but we've now got a pretty good sense of what it takes to create a huge carbon fiber tank that can hold cryogenic liquid. That's actually extremely important for making a light spaceship. The next key element is on the engine side. We have to have an extremely efficient engine. So the Raptor engine will be the highest thrust to weight engine, we believe, of any engine of any kind ever made. We already have now 1,200 seconds of firing across 42 main engine tests. We fired it for 100 seconds. It could fire for much longer than 100 seconds. That's just the size of the test tanks. And then the duration of the firing you're seeing right now is about 40 seconds, which is the length of the firing for landing on Mars. The test engine currently operates at 200 atmospheres to a ton.
All right, I listened to this. What up? I listened to this. Yeah, he's gonna have dreams about me. But I listened to this earlier today, or maybe yesterday. It's just really interesting what this dude is saying. Him and his team and his company are doing. So this is Elon Musk, the CEO and founder of Tesla Automobiles.
Bar.
He also Army of Futsak. Sure. If you really want to, yeah, you can buy my painting. Sure. Are you sure you want to do that? But Elon Musk is the guy who, like I say, the CEO and founder of Tesla Automobiles, but he also has another company called SpaceX. And the goal of SpaceX is to put people on Mars permanently. Like permanently. And he's talking like in the next 50 years. To go ahead and get that shit started in like 50 years. And then, like 1,000 years from now, Mars will be on some whole other, just had a whole shit terraformed and everything. That's fucking crazy. So, I don't know. When I hear interesting shit like this, I tend to listen to it more than once. Because you miss shit the first time. Make sure I understand everything this dude is talking about. Cause there's some crazy shit about to go down. And that means certain motherfuckers gonna be able to leave the planet. And certain motherfuckers ain't gonna be able to leave the planet. Then who sets up the government of the new planet? Who gets there first? You know what I'm saying? It's fucking crazy. Alright, I'm gonna turn it back on in 1 minute. The underground car network? Yo, I ain't heard about that shit. Hell no, I'm not leaving the planet. Y'all motherfuckers can leave and we'll stay behind. Shit about to be on some motherfucking, some Star Trek shit, yo. And then, he's also talking about, AI. Like, this dude is actually fearful of AI, you know, like, he's like, yo, we gotta make regulations now, because this shit is right around the fucking corner. AI is here, basically. But once we get this deep learning shit figured out and try to make a sentient AI, like, shit is gonna be fucking crazy. And dude is like, yo, man, I don't think we're ready for that shit. Y'all need to goddamn make sure everything is fucking absolutely regulated. And that's why he bought into the that Google DeepMind shit. He part of that shit now. I think he just do that shit just to fucking monitor their ass or some shit, cause Google is buying up all these fucking AI firms. They bought Boston Dynamics. The world is getting crazy, son. I gotta motherfucking be prepared for this new fucking tech revolution. Y'all ever watch Ghost in the Shell? Oh man. Yo, watch Ghost in the Shell. Start with the original Ghost in the Shell movie, yo. The anime, not the fucking, that whack ass shit that Steven Spielberg did. Fuck that shit up, man. Not that shit, yo. Go back and watch the original Ghost in the Shell anime. Man, they tell you all about this fucking singularity, motherfucking cyberization. Who the fuck? Yeah, it's crazy.
The flight engine will be at 250 bar, and then we believe over time we could probably get that to a little over 300 bar. The next key element is propulsive landing. So in order to land on things like the moon, where there is no atmosphere and certainly no runways, or to land on Mars, where the atmosphere is too thin to land on, even if there were runways to land with the wing, you really have to get propulsive landing perfect. So that's what we've been practicing with Falcon 9. So this is just a series of landing buttons. I think it's quite mesmerizing. But we now have 16 successful landings in a row. And that's with... So it's 16 in a row, and that's with really without any redundancy. So Falcon 9 lands on a single engine. The final landing is always done with a single engine, whereas BFR will always have multi-engine out capability.
But you see how that shit landed, and fucking all the fucking smoke and char and debris kicked up. How come that shit didn't happen on the moon and leave a scorched mark on the moon the first time they landed? I'm just bringing some shit up, you know.
So if you can get to a very high reliability with even a single engine, and then you can land and then you can land with either of two engines, I think we can get to a landing reliability that is on par with the safest commercial airliners. So you can essentially count on the landing. It's not like you want minimum pucker factor on the landing. So, and it can land with also very high precision. In fact, we believe the precision at this point is good enough for propulsive landing that we do not need legs for the next version. It will literally land with so much precision, it will land back on its launch mounts. So the launch rate is also is increasing exponentially. Particularly when you take tanking or refilling on orbit into account, and taking the idea of establishing a self-sustaining base on Mars or the moon or elsewhere seriously, you need ultimately thousands of ships and tens of thousands of retanking or refilling operations, which means you need many launches per day. You really need to be looking in terms of how many landings are occurring. You need to be looking at your watch, not your calendar. So while this is quite a high launch rate that we're talking about here, by conventional standards, it's still a very small launch rate compared to what will ultimately be needed. But just for those who are unfamiliar with how many orbital launches occur every year, it's approximately 60 orbital launches occur per year, which means if SpaceX does do something like 30 launches next year, it'll be approximately half of all orbital launches that occur on Earth. The next thing is a key technology is automated rendezvous and docking. So in order to retank or refill the spaceship in orbit, you have to be able to rendezvous and dock with the spaceship with very high precision and transfer per pound. So that's one of the things that we've perfected with Dragon. Dragon 1 will do an automated rendezvous and docking without any pilot control to the space station. Dragon 1 currently uses the Canadarm for the final placement onto the space station. Dragon 2, which launches next year, will not need to use the Canadarm. So Dragon 2 will directly dock with the space station. And it can do so with zero human intervention. You just press go and it will dock. Dragon has also allowed us to perfect heat shield technology. So when you enter at high velocity, you'll melt almost anything. The reason meteors don't reach Earth is they melt or disintegrate before they reach the ground, unless they're very big. So you have to have a sophisticated heat shield technology that can withstand unbelievably high temperatures, and that's what we've been perfecting with Dragon, and also a key part of any planet colonizing system. Next slide. So Falcon 1, this is where we started out. A lot of people really only heard of SpaceX relatively recently. So they may think, say, Falcon 9 and Dragon just instantly appeared, and that's how it always was. But it wasn't. We started off with just a few people who really didn't know how to make rockets. And the reason I ended up being the chief engineer or chief designer was not because I wanted to, it's because I couldn't hire anyone. And nobody good would join. Ended up being that by default. And I messed up the first three launches. The first three launches failed. Unfortunately, the fourth launch, which was that was the last money that we had for Falcon 1. The fourth launch worked, or that would have been it for SpaceX. But fate liked us that day. So the fourth launch worked, and it's interesting. Today is the 9th anniversary of that launch. So I didn't realize that until I was told that just earlier today, but it's a very emotional day, actually. But Falcon 1 was quite a small rocket. When we were doing Falcon 1, we were really trying to figure out what is the smallest useful payload that we could get to orbit. I thought, okay, something around half a ton to orbit would be able to launch, that could launch a decent-sized small satellite to low Earth orbit, and that's why we sized Falcon 1. But it's really quite small compared to Falcon 9. So Falcon 9, particularly when you factor in payload, Falcon 9 is many times more, it's sort of on the order of 30 times more payload than Falcon 1. And Falcon 9 has reuse of the primary booster, which is the most expensive part of the rocket, and hopefully soon reuse of the fairing, the big nose cone at the front. So we think we can probably get to something like somewhere between 70 and 80% reusability with the Falcon 9 system. And hopefully towards the end of this year we'll be launching Falcon Heavy, which is Falcon Heavy ended up being a much more complex program than we thought. It sounds easy. Let's show Falcon Heavy actually. It sounds like it should be easy because it's 2 first stages of Falcon 9s strapped on as boosters. It's actually not. We had to redesign almost everything except the upper stage in order to take the increased loads. So Falcon Heavy ended up being much more a new vehicle than we realized. So it took us a lot longer to get it done. But the boosters have all now been tested, and they're on their way to the Cape Canaveral. And we are now beginning serious development of BFR. So you can see the payload difference is quite dramatic. BFR in fully reusable configuration, without any orbital refueling, we expect to have a payload capability of 150 tons to low Earth orbit. So, and that compares to about 30 for Falcon Heavy, which is partially reusable. Where this really makes a tremendous difference is in the cost, which I'll come to in some of the later slides. So let's go to the next slide. By the way, so with BFR, you can get a sense of scale by looking at the tiny person there. It's really quite a big vehicle. Main body diameter is about 9 meters or 30 feet. And it consists of the booster is lifted by 31 Raptor engines that produce a thrust of about 5,400 tons, lifting a 4,400 ton vehicle straight up. So just the basics about the ship: 48-meter length. Dry mass are expecting to be about 85 tons. Or technically, our design says 75 tons, but inevitably there's mass growth. And that ship will contain 1,100 tons of propellant with a design of a sand design of 150 tons and a return mass of 50. So you can think of this as essentially combining the upper stage of the rocket with Dragon. It's like the Falcon 9 upper stage and Dragon were combined. So as I'll go into each of these items in detail, but you've got obviously the engine section in the rear, the propellant tanks in the middle, and then a large payload bay in the front. And that payload bay is actually 8 stories tall. In fact, you can fit a whole stack of Falcon 1 rockets in the payload bay. Compared to the design I showed last time, you'll see that there is a small delta wing at the back of the rocket. The reason for that is in order to expand the mission envelope of the BFR spaceship. Depending on whether you're landing or you're entering a planet or a moon that has no atmosphere, a thin atmosphere, or a dense atmosphere, and depending on whether you're re-entering with no payload in the front, a small payload, or a heavy payload, you have to balance the rocket out as it's coming in. And so the delta wing at the back, which also includes a split flap for pitch and roll control, allows us to control the pitch angle despite having a wide range of payloads in the nose and a wide range of atmospheric densities. So we try to avoid having the delta wing, but it was necessary in order to generalize the capability of the spaceship such that it could land anywhere in the solar system. So let's look at a couple of things in detail. So the cargo area has a pressurized volume of 825 cubic meters. This also is greater than the pressurized area of an A380. So really is capable of carrying a tremendous amount of payload. In a Mars transit configuration, since you'd be taking 3 months in a really good scenario, but maybe as much as 6 months, some number of months, single-digit months, you probably want a cabin, not just a seat. So the Mars transit configuration consists of 40 cabins, and it sort of depends on, you could conceivably have 5 or 6 people per cabin if you really want to crack people in. But I think mostly we would expect to see 2 to 3 people per cabin. And so normally about 100 people per flight to Mars. And then there's a central storage area, galley, and a solar storm shelter, entertainment area, and I think probably a good situation for at least BFR version 1. Then going to the main body of the vehicle, the center body area. This is where the propellant is located. And this is subcooled methane and oxygen. So as you chill the methane and oxygen below its liquid point, you get a fairly meaningful density increase. You get on the order of 10 to 12% density increase, which makes quite a big difference for the propellant load. So we're expecting it to carry 240 tons of CH4 and 860 tons of oxygen. In the fuel tank are header tanks. So when you come in for a landing, your orientation may change quite significantly, but so you can't have the propellant just sloshing around all over in the main tanks. You have to have the header tanks that can feed the main engines with precision. So that's what you see immersed in the fuel tank. Then the engine section. So the ship engine section consists of four vacuum Raptor engines and 2 sea-level engines. So all 6 engines are capable of gimbaling. The engines with the high expansion ratio have a relatively smaller gimbal area or gimbal range and a slower gimbal rate. The 2 center engines have a very high gimbal range and can gimbal very quickly. And you can land the ship with either one of the 2 center engines. So when you come for a landing, it will light both engines, but if one of the center engines fails at any point, it will be able to land successfully with the other engine. And then within each engine, there's a great deal of redundancy. So we want the landing risk to be as close to zero as possible. And there's some basic stats about the engines. The sea-level engines are about a 330 ISP at sea level. The upper stage engine is 375. Now, this is version 1, so I think over time there's potential to increase that specific impulse by 5 to 10 seconds, and as I was mentioning, also increase the chamber pressure by 50 bar or so. And then for refilling, where you just saw the two ships would actually mate at the rear section. They would use the same mating interface that they used to connect to the booster on liftoff. So we'd reuse that mating interface and reuse the propellant fill lines that are used when the booster is when the ship is on the booster. And then to transfer propellant, it becomes very simple. Use control thrusters to accelerate in the direction that you want to empty. So, if you accelerate in this direction, propellant goes that way, and you transfer the propellant very easily into the from the tanker to the ship. So going to rocket capability. This gives you sort of a rough sense of rocket capability, starting off at the low end with the Falcon 1 at a half ton, and then going up to BFR at 150. So I think it's important to note that the BFR has more capability than Saturn V, even with full reusability. But here's the really important fundamental point. Let's look at the launch cost. The order reverses. Now, at first glance, this may seem ridiculous, but it's not. The same is true of aircraft. If you bought, say, a small single-engine turboprop aircraft, that would be $1.5 to $2 million. To charter a 747 from California to Australia is $500,000 there and back. The single-engine turboprop can't even get to Australia. So a fully reusable system, like a fully reusable giant aircraft like 747, costs a third as much as an expendable tiny aircraft. In one case, you have to build an entire aircraft. In the other case, you just have to refuel something. So it's really crazy that we build these sophisticated rockets and then crash them every time we fly. This is mad. This is I can't emphasize how profound this is and how important reusability is. And often I'll be told, but you could get more payload if you made it expendable. I say, yes, you could also get more payload from an aircraft if you got rid of the landing gear and the flaps and just parachute it out when you got to your destination. But that would be crazy, and you would sell 0 aircraft. So reusability is absolutely fundamental. Now I want to talk about the value of orbital refilling. This is also extremely important. So if you just fly VFR to orbit and don't do any refilling, it's pretty good. You'll get 150 tons to low Earth orbit and have no fuel to go anywhere else. However, if you send up tankers and refill in orbit, you can refill the tanks all the way to the top and get 150 tons all the way to Mars. And if the tanker has high reuse capability, then you're just paying for the cost of propellant. And the cost of oxygen is extremely low, and the cost of methane is extremely low. So if that's all you're dealing with, the cost of refilling your spaceship on orbit is tiny, and you can get 150 tons all the way to Mars. So automated rendezvous and docking and refilling, absolutely fundamental. So then getting back to the question of how do we pay for this system, this was really, quite a profound, I wouldn't call it a breakthrough, but realization that if we can build a system that cannibalizes our own products, makes our own products redundant, then all of the resources, which are quite enormous, that are used for Falcon 9 Heavy and Dragon, can be applied to one system. Some of our customers are conservative, and they want to see BFR fly several times before they're comfortable launching it. So what we plan to do is to build ahead and have a stock of Falcon 9 and Dragon vehicles, so that customers can be comfortable. If they want to use the old rocket, the old spacecraft, they can do that, because we'll have a bunch in stock. But all of our resources will then turn towards building VFR. And we believe that we can do this with the revenue that we receive for launching satellites and for servicing the space station. So going into the satellites portion, the size of this being a 9-meter diameter vehicle is a huge enabler for new satellites. We can actually send something that is almost 9 meters in diameter to orbit. So for example, if you want to do a new Hubble, you could send a mirror that has 10 times the surface area of the current Hubble as a single unit. It doesn't have to unfold or anything. And or you can send a large number of small satellites. You can do whatever you like. You can actually also go around and, if you wanted to collect old satellites or clean up space debris, you can just use the sort of chomper over there and go around and collect satellites or collect space debris if you want. So that may be something we have to do in the future. But that fairing would open up and retract and come back down. So it enables launching of Earth satellites that are significantly larger than anything we've done before, or significantly more satellites at a time than anything that's been done before. It's also intended to be able to service the space station. I know it looks a little big relative to the space station, but the shuttle also looked big, so it'll work. Looks a little outsized, but it'll work. So it'll be capable of doing what Dragon does today in terms of transporting cargo, and what Dragon 2 will do in terms of transporting crew and cargo. So you do the space station servicing. It can also go obviously much further than that.
How long do I need to do this? Each piece is different. Different images, different size canvases. So it really does vary a lot. So far, I'm about maybe about 20 hours into this painting. And it's about halfway done. A little more than halfway, maybe. Excuse me. What time is it? I'm getting hungry now, guys. Man, oh man. I went to the gym this morning too. Got my little workout in. Now, how long have I been in here? An hour, almost 2 hours. It's about time to feed the beast. It's time to feed the beast. What was I going to do? Grab this brush and work on that shadow. Gotta get that shadow in there. Gotta work on that shadow. Yeah, it's looking good, yo. Even in the camera, it looked good. But you would absolutely have to see it in person to get the full effect.
Like, for example, the moon. Based on the calculations we've done, we can actually do lunar surface missions with no propellant production on the surface of the moon. So if we do a high elliptic parking orbit for the ship and retank in a high elliptic orbit, we can go all the way to the moon and back with no local propellant production on the moon. So I think that would enable the creation of moon base alpha or some sort of lunar base. Yeah, it's quite captivating. So you can also see, for example, how do you transfer cargo from the cargo bay down to the ground is a crane. It's not very complicated. Yeah, but so this will enable the creation of a lunar base. And it's 2017. I mean, we should have a lunar base by now. What the hell's going on? And then, of course, Mars, becoming a multi-planet species. It's the hell out of being a single-planet species. So, yeah, so we'd start off by setting a mission to Mars, where it would be obviously just landing on rocky ground or dusty ground. And it's the same approach that I mentioned before, which is you send the spaceship up to orbit, you retank it or refill it until it has full tanks, and it travels to Mars, lands on Mars. For Mars, you will need local propellant production, but Mars has a CO2 atmosphere and plenty of water ice that gives you CO2 and H2O. So you can make therefore CH4 and O2 using the Sabatier process and or Sabatier process. And I should mention that long term this can also be done on Earth. So sometimes I get some sort of criticism for why are you using combustion in rockets and you have electric cars? Like, well, there isn't some way to make an electric rocket. I wish there was. But in the long term, you can use solar power to extract CO2 from the atmosphere, combine it with water, and produce fuel and oxygen for the rocket. So the same thing that we would do on Mars, we could do on Earth in the long term. But that's essentially what happens. Similar to the moon, you land on Mars, but the tricky thing with Mars is we do need to build a propellant depot to refill the tanks and return to Earth. But because Mars has lower gravity than Earth, you do not need a booster. So you can go all the way from the surface of Mars to the surface of Earth just using the ship. Albeit you need to go to a max payload number of about 20 to 50 tons for the return journey to work. But it's a single stage all the way back to Earth. And I'll show you so this is the true physics simulation. This will last about a minute. So you come in, you're entering very quickly, going 7.5 kilometers a second. For Mars, there will be some ablation of the heat shield. So it's just like a sort of brake pad wearing away. It is a multi-use heat shield, but unlike for Earth operations, it's coming in hot enough that you will see some wear of the heat shield. But because Mars has an atmosphere, albeit not a particularly dense one, you can remove almost all the energy aerodynamically. And we've proven out supersonic retropropulsion many times with Falcon 9, so we feel very comfortable about that. This is because it's sort of you can see sort of a mesh system. It's not meant to be sort of particularly pretty because it's just tries to simulate the physics of it. But the size of the cone gives you a rough approximation for how much thrust the engines are producing. That's not a typo. Although it is aspirational. So we've already started building the system. The tooling for the main tanks has been ordered. The facility is being built. We'll start construction of the first ship around the second quarter of next year, so in about 6 to 9 months, we should start building the first ship. I feel fairly confident that we can complete the ship and be ready for launch in about 5 years. 5 years seems like a long time to me. Yeah. The area under the curve of resources over that period of time should enable this time frame to be met. But if not this time frame, I think pretty soon thereafter. But that's our goal, is to try to make the 2022 Mars rendezvous. The Earth-Mars synchronization happens roughly every 2 years. So every 2 years, there's an opportunity for just to fly to Mars. So then in 2024, we want to try to fly 4 ships, 2 of which would be crewed, and 2 of which two cargo and two crew. The goal of these initial missions is to find the best source of water. That's for the first mission, and then the second mission, the goal is to build the propellant plant. So we should, particularly with 6 ships, there have plenty of landed mass to construct the propellant depot, which will consist of a large array of solar panels, very large array, and then everything necessary to mine and refine water, and then draw the CO2 out of the atmosphere, and then create and store deep cryo CH4 and O2. Then build up the base, starting mostly with one ship, then multiple ships, then start building out the city, then making the city bigger, even bigger. And over time, terraforming Mars and making it really a nice place to be. Thanks. Give me I guess that's quite a beautiful picture. And on the prior slide, it's interesting to know that on Mars, dawn and dusk are blue, and it's the sky. So the sky is blue in dawn and dusk, and red during the day. It's the opposite of Earth. And but there's something else. If you build a ship that's capable of going to Mars, what if you take that same ship and go from one place to another on Earth? So we looked at that, and the results are quite interesting. Let's take a look at that. Mountain. So the great thing about going to space is there's no friction. So once you're out of the atmosphere, you will go. It will be smooth as silk. No turbulence. Nothing. There's no weather. There's no atmosphere, and you can get to most long distance places, like I said, in less than half an hour. And if we're building this thing to go to the Moon and Mars, then why not go to other places on Earth as well? All right, thank you.
When it's time to move to another planet, Mars is right next door. But it's a freeze-dried rock, too cold for life. We could warm it up, but not like this.
Well, we know how to warm up planets. We're demonstrating that we know how to do that right here on Earth, where it's probably not a good idea.
We'll do it the old-fashioned way, with factories and global warming, on purpose. In 100 years, Mars will be warm, wet, and ready for life. It's called terraforming, and it sounds like science fiction. But it may be coming to a planet near you sooner than you think.
That's not something for 500 years in the future. That's us. We're going to Mars.
Take to make water flow on a world where the average temperature is 80 below zero. Or turn bare rock and dust into soil where forests could grow. What would it take to terraform Mars? Create a planet more like Earth, where humans could breathe the air. It would cost billions and take hundreds, if not thousands of years to accomplish. But transforming Mars from a barren rock into a living world is not as far-fetched as it may seem. And our long-term survival could depend on it.
If you're a threatened species, which, let's face it, we are, you don't want to all be in one small habitat. You want to be diversified.
Terraforming is already on its way from science fiction to science fact. Here on an 18,500-foot volcano in Mexico called Orizaba. It's a magnet for climbers, adrenaline junkies, and planetary scientists. Chris McKay is one of them, an astrobiologist interested in the possibility of life on other planets. His research takes him to extreme environments all over the world. Places that expose the limits of life on Earth. What draws him to Orizaba are the trees, and in particular, the tree line. At 13,000 feet, it's among the highest in the world, which means these pine trees live right at the edge of what trees can tolerate.
We're trying to understand what is it that sets the tree line. We want to know, why do the trees grow down there but not here? Clearly it's